crooked? Why are you so crooked? There we go. Hello again and welcome back to another episode of, we'll do a new series starting now. I know recently I decided I wanted to do a new series and called it something else, and if you haven't noticed at this point, if you've been tuning in to these videos for any amount of time, I'm pretty indecisive sometimes. And so I get too many good ideas, or what I perceive to be good ideas. I get too many good ideas in my head and decide I want to jump on them without really thinking through long-term plans. So the previous long series we did was reflecting on some of the radical sayings and teachings of some of the saints. We really parked in Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, for quite some time, but we dabbled in Balthazar Gracian and St. Benedict a little bit too, right? But I don't know. I tend to these occasions, these videos tend to be just me talking out loud about stuff that I'm thinking about in the moment, right? The things that are weighing on my mind or my heart, and a lot of times they're often things that I wish I could have reflected on more during like sermons or teachings or what have you, but I just couldn't find a way to make it all fit. So this is kind of has been kind of the spillover for me in so many ways, but it's also kind of an opportunity for me. I mean, you, by watching these videos, are blessing me in so many ways, because it gives me an opportunity to actually kind of work out my theology, my thinking, while I'm talking about it. An old favorite theologian of mine, an author, used to talk about how so many times he would work out his theology in public during public lectures. And kind of people laughed thinking it was a joke, and he was like, actually no, I'm quite serious. I come to these lectures seemingly pretty confident in what I have to say, but through this kind of interaction with folks in the room and just the spirit of the conversation, you become more certain that an idea is either good or bad, helpful or not helpful, right? So yeah, I don't know why I'm reflecting on this so much. It's not really the point, but this evening I want to begin a new series. I'm going to return to something I'm quite passionate about, something I'm more passionate about than most things, and that's spirituality or meditation. We had a lot of traction, a lot of folks giving feedback whenever I was focusing on different spiritual practices and different self-care practices throughout the pandemic, but those videos were good. We reflected on some good stuff, I think. Good content, at least. I don't know how well I did, but the content was good. The topics were good, but we didn't go really deep into meditation or contemplative prayer or mindfulness, as it's called. Those are three distinct different forms of prayer, for sure, when you really get into them. But on the surface level, for most folks, they're all synonyms for people. So I'm going to go deeper into an understanding of meditation, deeper into the practice of meditation specifically. And if you watched my sermon for this morning, I led off with a quote by, I think it was Karl Rahner, a modern famous Roman Catholic theologian, where he said that the Christian of the future will be a mystic, or they won't be a Christian at all. In other words, if Christianity doesn't make a shift into mysticism fully, there will be no such thing as Christianity in the future. And I believe that those words are quite prophetic, and I believe that they are quite true. And I also believe that one of the reasons why Christianity has lost its way and lost so many people is because we've lost our mysticism. And what it is that people are looking for is they're looking for deep transformation within their souls. They're looking for inner healing. And we just simply are not offering people that anymore. At the very least, we're paying lip service to that. Like we talk about inner healing, but we actually don't know what it means to actually lead people through those seasons and those layers of inner healing through spirituality. We just, people like me who are these things, we go through seminary and there's not a whole lot of guidance in terms of how to give spiritual guidance. And we're filtered through seminary and approved primarily because we can answer the right sorts of answers to the questions that are posed and given to us, right? It's tragic. It is tragic because the church is suffering for it. But the loss of meditation has meant the loss of Christianity, relevant Christianity for so many people, and it's meant the loss of so many of our young people in our pews. I 150% believe this to be the case, right? I'll share a story with you just to kind of highlight that point even more, that I've shared through a few different sermons, perhaps through a few different Sunday evening reflections like this. But years ago, and I talk about this a lot too, I spent time at New Camaldoli Hermitage in Big Sur, California. I was able, while I was in seminary, to do an internship, basically an intern as a hermit. It was really cool, life-changing, one of the most life-changing things I've ever done in my entire life. So most of my classmates went and interned in a church setting. I got permission to go and intern at this hermitage, and went there and had, I interviewed the hermits that live there on different things. How do you practice meditation? How do you practice contemplative prayer? There's other things I was really interested in as well that I interviewed the abbot of the monastery or the hermitage for. So I went through the whole thing, and it was just radically life-changing and life-giving for me. And on the last day that I was there, moments before I left the hermitage, I was sitting in the refectory, or like the cafeteria, waiting for the guy who was going to drive me to the airport to show up. And while I was waiting, there was a young man. Side note, there were so many young people that filtered through that place during the almost month that I was there. So a lesson to be learned there. There's this young guy, end of side note. This young guy, I won't say his name, perhaps he's still there, I don't know. He wasn't really interested in becoming a hermit from what I could gather. You could see a lot of pain behind his eyes. I got the sense that maybe something tragic had happened, and he just needed a place where he could go and be healed for a season. And I think he had been living there for a year or two by the time I got there. And I didn't have a whole lot of chance to get to know him terribly. He was actually he was very quiet. But he worked and did stuff that the monks did. He wasn't a monk or a hermit. On my last day, as I'm waiting for the car to arrive, he sits down across from me. One of the most radically transformative conversations I've ever had. He sits down across from me and he says, "So you're going to be a priest soon, right?" I said, "Well, yeah, we'll see." Lord willing, right? I was only a year into seminary and my ordination process at this point. So it's like, Lord willing, but I guess, yeah, right, if things go well. And then he turned and he looked me square in the eye. And I don't know if I've ever had anybody talk to me so sincerely as he talked to me in this moment. Just the core of him came out. And he said, when you get ordained as a priest, please don't be like the rest of them. And he said that most priests distract people from prayer. And he went on to say that prayer is the natural state of the soul. And the problem with church today is it's distracting people from the natural state of the soul. So whenever the priest is just trying to wow their people with a sermon, right? Or with their intellectual ability, or with whatever, and lambasting people with ethical codes of conduct, right? All of it is a distraction from prayer. And he said, if you can find God in your own bedroom as you pray easily and quickly, but you just feel like church has become a distraction from prayer, would you continue to go to church anymore? With tears in my eyes, I said, no. And he's like, that's up to you to figure out how to resolve the problem that we in the church currently have. The future ordained have to figure this stuff out, right? I don't know if any truer words have ever been said within a Christian churchy context than his words. We in the church have become a distraction from prayer, thus a distraction from God. Prayer, and especially like inner silence and inner stillness, it's a natural state of the soul. But people come in and they sit in our pews and we're distracting them from the natural state of the soul. We're doing things that don't foster inner stillness, but we're actually pulling people out of that. We're pulling people out of that quiet, meditative, contemplative state and giving them something else. And while that something else might be quite good, it's not enough. And it's not the real thing. And as I referenced in my sermon this morning, like, it's as if like we in the church have become accustomed to like going to the grocery store and buying an orange and like peeling back the rind and eating the rind and throwing the fruit away. When all that young people and people in general want when they come into our sanctuaries, what they really want is that fruit. They want to savor its juices, but we're just giving them the externals. And we're giving them the externals because we're not tasting of the internal fruit itself. We're just satisfying ourselves with the rind. And it's not enough. And it's not what it's about, right? It's not what it's about. And the greatest tragedy that I have encountered during my many years of being in the ministry, almost a decade now, of being like a full-time clergy person, is just the number of people who tell me that they're not good at meditation, and so therefore they don't practice it. That shows me that clergy folks also are not practicing meditation, nor are they inviting people to come and practice it for themselves. Because meditation is as simple as like breathing in and out. Meditation is as simple as just existing. Again, meditation is the natural state of the soul. All of the other stuff is just unnatural. The anxieties, the turmoil, all of that, the inner stuff, right? So yeah, I think I'm making this video this evening, like what's the point? The point is that anybody can do it, and everybody should do it, and it's a necessity that every Christian begin to meditate, or else the future of the church is just non-existent. Everybody can do it. Meditation, it's so many things. There's so many ways to try to like hint at it. I can never you can't really directly point at it and say this is it, because it's so many things. But anybody can just sit and let themselves be with themselves and let themselves be with God in the moment. And I think part of the problem that people, when they say that they're not good at meditating, they say that what they mean is like they feel distracted during meditation. But meditation is not about being undistracted. It's not about emptying your mind completely of all content. It's about sitting with your mind and all of its content and trusting that in the process of just sitting there and being with yourself and with God in the moment, that God is undistractedly doing something in the moment. It's meditation, to use another imagery here, is like it's like Genesis 1, the very opening lines of Genesis, where we're told that like in the beginning the Holy Spirit was like hovering over the barren creation, over the waters of creation. It's our work to just sit. And yes, it's good if we can try to be less distracted and still our minds and our hearts more, but you're never gonna be completely undistracted. And it's the Holy Spirit who does the work of creating something new. It's not us, it's the Holy Spirit, right? And so like accepting the fact that you're not good at meditating is like the most pivotal part of meditating. letting yourself sit with your distracted, scatterbrained and mind, and trusting that God is there with you regardless. That is the central piece of meditation, right? There's that parable that Jesus tells about the wheat and the tares, profoundly deep parable, where there's the wheat that's growing. Farmers planted all these seeds and the wheat's growing up, but then the enemy comes in and sows all of these seeds for weeds, and the weeds start coming up with the tares start coming up with the wheat, right? And then the workers on the farm say, well, should we go and uproot all of the weeds? And the farmer says, no, let them grow simultaneously. It's not our job in meditation to try to uproot all of the weedy thoughts that are distracting, right? Let the wheat of silence grow simultaneously with the distracting weeds, and let God sort it out, because God will. So if you just simply bring yourself and let yourself be present to yourself, just as you are, distracting thoughts, warts and all, imperfections and flaws, all of that, just show up just as you are and just sit and be there. And if you can acquire some parts where you're just completely silent, beautiful, is not necessary, because God will be the one in the end who will uproot the weeds, and the wheat of pure stillness and silence will eventually take root. Yeah. I really like what Father Thomas Keating, rest in peace, departed a few years ago, the person that kind of spearheaded the movement that's called centering prayer, just another form of meditation or contemplative prayer. He makes a really important distinction that I think is helpful. He says that meditation is not about attention, it's about intention. So when you come and sit in your time of meditation, the level of attention that you're able to give to God in perfect stillness in the moment, the level at which you're able to clear your mind and empty your mind of all thoughts, that's not the point. Meditation isn't about your attention. And you don't fail to meditate if you have a lack of attention to the moment, if you get pulled out of the present moment because your thoughts take you there, right? That's not what it's about. Rather, it's about intention. So if it's your intention to show up, to sit with yourself in silence and let yourself be yourself in the moment and allow God to be there, if you're intending to give that moment to God, regardless of your mental state or where you're at in here, right? That's what meditation is all about. So when people say that they can't do that they're not good at meditating, they don't understand what meditation really is, because they're defining meditation through the lens of attention, not intention. But anybody can sit down and intend to give the moment to God, and just trust that regardless of their level of attention, God is being fully attentive to them in the moment and is doing a healing work under the surface. Yeah. And there will be occasions where breakthroughs happen, where you enter into just perfect stillness and perfect peace. And those are great. And the more you practice meditation, the more that will happen, because the more you're opening yourself up to God's healing presence. To use the parable again, the more weeds God's going to uproot, right, from the roots. And so they won't distract you and pull your focus away so much anymore. But those are going to be windows of time, pockets, right? And those are important seasons whenever you're able to just sit and be still before the Lord, right? Perfectly attentive. But those seasons are not more important than the seasons where you're just fully distracted. In fact, it's probably more important that you're showing up to meditation, knowing you're fully distracted, and still inviting God to do a work, right? Because that's the harder thing. So, yeah. So this new series I'm going to call Return to the Center, to borrow a phrase from one of my spiritual ancestors, Father Bede Griffith. I'm inviting you to return to the center of your being, where your true self exists and where God rests within you. And with that, I'm inviting you to the practice of meditation. So before we get into principles of practice and what have you, I just wanted to kind of clear the air and clear up some confusion, because more times than not, people tell me that they're not good at meditating, than people tell me that they actually practice it. And so if you're somebody that has convinced yourself that you're not good at meditating, I hope I've proven to you that you haven't understood what meditation actually is. Anybody can sit and be distracted, right? Like, if you're good at that, you are good at meditating. All you got to do is just devote that time to God, and just at the beginning of it, invite God into that hot mess, right? That raging dumpster fire that is your inner turmoil, right? Anybody can do that. Thus, anybody can meditate, right? Yeah. And it's a necessity, dear Christian. If you're a churchy person, if you want to see the church continue into the new era, it's a necessity that you start meditating. It is. Because if we all don't do that, there is no future for the church. Yeah. I have said enough. I'm going to stop. Thank you for tuning in. Next week we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of practice, I think. But for right now, just think about how you think about meditation. And if you're so eager to start right now, in the moment this has inspired you to go and meditate, awesome. Turn me off and go meditate. What do you need in terms of guidance? It's as simple as what the psalmist says. Be still and know that I am God. Be still, and God will make God's self known through that practice eventually. Yeah. God bless.